The Milwaukee Bucks made some history tonight. Not in the way you want to celebrate, though. Not in the way you want to celebrate. Dissecting the latest loss on Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What it do, y'all? Welcome to Locked On Bucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network, your team every day. I'm Camille Davis, an NBA analyst with the Locked On Network and co-host of the Technical Foul podcast, joined by Frank Madden, longtime voice of the pod, and the founder of brewhoop.com. We truly appreciate you for tuning in and making Locked On Bucks that first listen every single day. You can find the pod free and available where you get your podcast, as well as on YouTube. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday, 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 5 to 6:30 p.m. Central Time. The Bucks lose again. The garbage time in the fourth quarter made this final margin a little bit more respectable than what it was on pace to be while the starters and normal rotation guys were still in the game. So on today's show, we're going to talk about this loss, of course, talk about the Wemby Giannis matchup, take a look of what's ahead for the Bucks and where they currently stand now officially halfway through the season. But I made mention of the fact that the Bucks made some history tonight, not in the way that you would want. Our friend Justin Garcia, he tweeted out, the Bucks lose back-to-back games by a combined margin of 51 points. This is the largest margin over 2 games in franchise history. The previous high was 48, last done in 1983. This is what happens when the Bucks lose to the Wolves by 33, followed up with a loss to the Spurs by 18 in a game where at halftime they were down 13. But the third quarter to me felt like that real turning point. That's when the dam broke for this team. What did you see out there in this one, Frank? Another loss for the Bucks, but I'll say this at the very least, a bit more effort than what we saw from this team against the Timberwolves at home, although the end result is the same, another loss.
I mean, I think they've quit on Doc kind of midway through both of these games. So I think that tells you if I have not been too optimistic about the Bucks' willingness to fire Doc Rivers. But I mean, if you watch these 2 games, Doc Rivers is going to get something more than garbage out of this team. Like, is that what, I mean, I don't think anybody could have watched the way they played these last 2 games. I mean, they have no, we've talked about it. They have no real offensive identity other than hope Giannis conjures magic, every night. They have no defensive identity. I'm sure the coaches think the players are stupid and can't execute stuff. By the looks of it, I'm guessing the players think the coaches are idiots and probably don't have any ideas, right?
Yeah.
Like tonight, they like the last 2 games, they get like blitzed to death from 3, and then they like go into zone and immediately give up an alley-oop dunk and an open 3. It's just like this team is out of ideas. And, again, firing Doc Rivers is not going to like magically make the players better or, unlock a level of genius from Darvin Ham and the coaching staff or something like that. But the vibes are clearly rock bottom with this team right now. And, there's literally like after the Nuggets and especially the Minnesota losses tonight, obviously it was more or less a full strength Spurs team, although they had the benefit of not having to face Wemby for an extended period after he knocked knees with Giannis. That was when they were sort of competitive for a little bit tonight. But like, there's no group of like 5 human beings the Bucks could play and you would feel confident that they would win a basketball game at this point, right? Go down to the Y, pick 5 people. They have a chance against the Bucks. Maybe the Bucks don't feel like playing that night. So yeah, I mean, this team obviously is just in a very bad place, and they're not extremely talented, but they're definitely not as untalented as their play has suggested, I think, over the course of the season. And it's just like you look. I would just come back to Boston. I just look at Boston's roster. I'm just like, if the Celtics can be a top 4 seed in the East, top 3, top 2 seed in the East with what Joe Mazzulla is working with, then Doc Rivers has no real excuses.
Yeah.
So look, every part of the roster should obviously be getting scrutinized as well. But yeah, I mean, I don't know where you go from here. They have what, three off days. But looking at the way the players have just sort of thrown up their arms midway through these last 2 games or early in these last 2 games. I mean, if you're Jimmy Haslam, Wes Edens, Jamie Dinan, Mike Fastelli, whoever else, from the Bucks ownership group has a say in things, John Horst didn't apparently want Doc Rivers in the first place, supposedly.
Allegedly. Yeah.
Like what? Like, does Doc do you think Doc wants to be here in January in Milwaukee coaching this team with these vibes? Like, I assume Doc wouldn't mind be getting fired and just getting his money and going home and playing golf in California. Like, I don't know. It's just like, are they just going to keep going through the motions with this joyless marriage, or are they going to shake things up, even if it is just to shake things up? Sometimes a dead cat is better off bouncing. And it feels like that's
a new
sort of
one.
where
a dead cat is better off bouncing.
Well, the dead cat bounce, right? That's what they say, right? When a team fires its coach and they win a game, even though nothing really has gotten better, but you win with an interim coach, or whatever you call it, the dead cat bounce. Fell on the ground, but it bounced back up at least a little bit. So I don't know how high the dead cat bounce can be with this team. But I'm certainly just, I'm just sort of sick of watching this incarnation of the team, and can't fire all the players, but the players are doing their best to get players are doing their best to get fired. KPJ really, turning into sour milk here. I think he's 9 for 37 over the last 3 games, 0 for 9 tonight, 0 points. Ryan Rollins has been bad, so those 2 guards that have been so critical for the Bucks are turning into pumpkins at the worst possible time for Doc Rivers. So I don't know, Camille, what else is there to do, right? Like, I'm not saying it's solving anything, but like, this team obviously is just sort of doesn't know what WTF it's doing.
No, it doesn't. And that's the problem. And I made mention, like, I felt like the effort in this game was better than what we saw against Minnesota, but that's a very low bar to clear, right? Like, that's a low bar to clear, to be like, hey, it was better than what we saw the last time you guys hit the floor. But this interest started, like, it felt like they just kind of lost all their spirit when they came on the third quarter. You're down 13. You're getting good looks, like the 3-point shots they were getting in the third quarter. They were kind of moving the ball. They're getting open looks, and nothing is falling. And it was like with every missed shot, you felt like the shoulders slump a little bit more. Every missed shot you saw, and especially with the Spurs making them on the other end, the defensive intensity started to wane there down the stretch. You saw it just felt like they just got beat into submission a bit in that third quarter. Like, when it's a 40-16 third quarter, like, I can see why your spirit would be beat out of you in that moment. Like, you were outscored by 24 points in the quarter. Like, I was tracking the 9 Giannis minutes to start, and then I just stopped. And like, it was no point anymore, because the Bucks were getting boat race with them on the court, boat race without them on the court. And again, the fourth quarter garbage time saved how bad this final score could have been. But Frank, you made mention of something I've been thinking about a little bit, with the fact that we're halfway through this season. Where do you go? So I want to talk about that. I want to talk a little bit about the Wemby Giannis matchup as well, because you don't get to see it that often. And we kind of got to see it tonight, but not as much as I was hoping. So we'll talk about all of that coming up after this. But first, a word from our friends over at DoorDash, because the NBA season is heating up. Maybe not as much for the Bucks as you would want, but it's heating up in general. And DoorDash has a way to keep fans in their bag the whole way through. So whether you're watching highlights, tunnel fits, or just your favorite players, DoorDash makes the entire season more fun because every player has their bag. With DoorDash, fans have one too. DoorDash keeps your snack stocked, to keep your gear fresh, and to keep your watch party vibes on point. You watching those late night interviews, those post game pressers, whatever the case may be, and you might be like, I need some chips or something. DoorDash is built for that. If you get a text from the group chat and they're like, hey, I need you to pull up real quick, DoorDash helps you show up prepared. You can bring the snacks, you can bring some cups, you can even bring a phone charger because everybody got that one friend whose phone is always somewhat on 2%. Like, how is your phone always dying? Anyways, from tip off to overtime, stay in your bag and order DoorDash. Get snacks, get drink, get gear. Whatever gets you through the season delivered right to your door. DoorDash in your bag all season long. Appreciate you for tuning in to Locked On Bucks, making us your first listen every single day. You already live your team every day, so take it up another level. Go ahead and join the Everydayer Club. Get Locked On Bucks with no interruptions, members-only Discord, and more for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to lockedonbucks.supercast.com or just check out the link that are in the show notes to learn more. Before we talk about the Bucks as a whole, the Wemby Giannis matchup. Every time we get this matchup now, I get excited. This is the fourth time we've seen Wemby and Giannis hit the court against one another, although this is the fifth time I believe the Bucks and the Spurs have played over the last 3 years. And the reason I love this superstar matchup is because I'm like, hey, they defend each other. Like, they came out the gate, you saw them holding each other. It's kind of get your popcorn out. But then Wemby got his second foul when he bumped knees with Giannis. He was taken out the game for the rest of the first quarter. Bucks had a little momentum there. He came back in the second quarter, but you didn't even really see him checking Giannis as much from that point. They decided to continue to use Wemby as that ultimate roamer type of guy in their defense. Saw him on Kuz for a bit, just kind of floating off, doing what he wants to do. And they didn't even have to play that many minutes. Again, the game got out of hand, so it was 21 minutes, I believe, for Giannis, 22 for Wemby, or vice versa for the two, but very similar minutes for the two. The matchup itself had some moments from each guy where it was kind of like, oh, that's a cool move from Giannis. That's a cool move from Wemby. But the matchup itself between the two stars didn't hit the way I hoped that it would, in large part because the Spurs wanted to win the game. And they knew they could put Wemby elsewhere and have him roam to cause havoc all over the court.
Yeah, I mean, Giannis got off to the really fast start. A good chunk of that obviously came after Wemby gets hurt, and then everything kind of slowed down from there. But as you said, I mean, this is a rare situation where like both Giannis and the other guy actually, like, we can tell, really want to defend the other guy, which makes it, I think, pretty fun and kind of gives it an extra dimension that, you know, we don't usually see with these superstar matchups because they're usually not defending each other. But, you know, Wemby was kind of MIA because he was hurt in the locker room. Giannis had his run, and then he came back, and then third quarter, you know, Wemby kind of goes on his run, and, you know, that was it. So ball game.
Pretty much. In a game where, again, the three ball wasn't falling. Kyle Kuzma, for a while there, Frank, Kyle Kuzma and Bobby Portis were like keeping the Bucks afloat with their shooting. The Kyle Kuzma piece of it really was like, man, he has shot at halftime. Kyle Kuzma had shot over a third of all of the threes the Bucks had taken. Like, he was getting the shots up, and it felt like that was a directive as well. Like, hey, we know Wemby's down there. He makes you kind of readjust the calculus and the math on the floor of how much space you have. Like, Bobby even got a couple up over Wemby where it was like, if it was even a half second later, Wemby probably would have been able to get to it, but just not enough from this team. And it makes me think, like, we know the trade deadline is coming up. We know the Bucks have been active in this deadline. They're in all the rumors. You're hearing them talk. I'm looking at this roster and I'm trying to think, is there a move where you can put that 2031 first round draft pick in it to get something back where you feel like it's worth it for this season and going forward? And based off the play of this roster as of late, to your point, I don't know if it's as simple as, hey, maybe they just need to kind of shake the coaching up and you can get some better results here. I was going to be mean. I'm not going to be mean and say something else there. That's one route you could take. Hey, does that help change things up? Hey, do we change this roster up? But it's like, I honestly don't think that there is like a magic move the Bucks can make at this deadline that can put them into like instant contention. But the flip side to that is like, well, they're still only like 3 games in the loss column behind the 10 seed. Like they're mathematically still in it. But I don't know. I don't feel like there's a one move for this team to make. Do you think that there's like a move, like one big move they can make this deadline with that pick that helps things this season? Because I'm more inclined to just kind of be like, at this point, try to see if you can get some role players who might be able to carve out something for you in the future. Otherwise, man, try again this summer and try to use this season to up that draft stock.
I mean, I think the only person that is like really available that I think you could make the case is like a long-term fit and not just like a short-term band-aid would be MPJ, who is like also, let's be honest, like kind of a knucklehead, although less of a knucklehead probably on the court than off. So perhaps you could make that work. But he can actually play the three, and he's not, again, it's not just another 6'4", 6'5" guy that you're like forcing to guard threes. So I think like, if they were to put the 2031 into play, which to be clear, they don't have to trade it as an unprotected pick. I mean, they could put protections on the pick. But if you put protections and then it like, move, then goes to the next year after that, if it's not conveyed, then you can't, then it just becomes more complicated in terms of what you can do kind of sort of beyond that. So, like MPJ, I think at least theoretically, given he doesn't like need the ball in his hands a lot, and he's a fantastic shooter, and he's, has good size, can play the 3 and the 4. I think there's an obvious like that guy would work with Giannis sort of thing. He's obviously not that he was like super clutch and dynamic when the Nuggets won their championship, but he's obviously at least like he's been in big playoff moments. He's had moments where he's played well. Last year he was hurt and played poorly in that series loss, but so you could talk me into that maybe, but I think for the most part, like Bucks could have gotten desperate with that pick over the summer too, and they didn't. So my assumption has been that like John Horst is kind of like his mindset is kind of like, I don't want to trade Giannis, but I kind of don't think I have to make a desperation move with the 2031 pick to keep Giannis. And we'll see if that is still true in the summer. But I think the Giannis's extension eligible in October. I was talking with Eric about this over the break. I mean, nobody's turned down the sort of mega max, super max. It's like going to be at least $275 million over a 4-year extension. Giannis turning that down. We know Giannis is not exactly like a guy, like he ain't turning down $275 million so he can take a pay cut in a year in free agency. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if, even if things don't go well here the rest of this season, if he might just take the money next October, because literally every other guy who's been faced with that sort of opportunity has done that. But we'll see, that's ultimately the kind of big decision. So, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if they don't touch that pick and they basically kind of wait until the off season, like we've talked about. They have on draft night, they would be able to move potentially wherever their 2026 pick ends up, the 2031 pick, and then the 2033 pick in July becomes movable. So you could, do some sort of crazy monster deal if you were so inclined. But, again, like what is the Bucks trade where they put, 3 first-round picks into play on draft night? Like, I'm not saying that there's like any kind of obvious things there either. But, like there is at least their cupboard will not be completely, empty this summer. But, obviously they're kind of at this crossroads where, what do the next few years even look like? They're trending obviously in a very downward trend. But the flip side is like Giannis is still incredible, and
Yes, he
the rest
is.
of the roster is still he's younger than Giannis. So, I think the problem is you just don't have the level of sort of consistency and maturity, in the guys that you're relying on, right? When KPJ, Rollins, and Kuzma are like three of your other primary guys you rely on, then you've got, a lot of like youth slash inconsistency slash,
There's high
you know,
variance there.
high variance. It's a very diplomatic way of saying it. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I think this is a team that needs like more adults, right? Like if we could put Gary Harris's brain into multiple of these players, that would probably be better. Just Gary Harris being a competent adult has made me really appreciate him, even though he doesn't shoot very much or, make a huge impact. Just like, man, just nice to have a guy who doesn't make me want to like, jump off a bridge. So, we'll
I mean,
see what happens. Hey, Chris Middleton, maybe
the
come
buyout
back.
candidate.
Yeah. Plus, if you fire Doc, I feel like your odds of Chris wanting to come back are probably higher too.
Okay, so the Chris Middleton to Milwaukee on the buyout market. Chris might look at the roster and the record and be like, actually, I think I'm gonna take.
You can start. There's no other small forward on the roster other than Kyle Kuzma.
There's that.
So,
there is that. We'll see.
Come on down. Get your starting spot back. Bring back like some level of like non-lunacy to decision making on the floor. Right. It doesn't matter that you can't really play defense anymore. Like
right. Can't really
literally just anybody that like has half a brain on offense. Would be welcome at this point. So, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have no interest in John Morant.
No, I don't.
He's
not
literally
an
like
fit at all.
The worst fit with Giannis that I can imagine from just an offensive standpoint, like a horrible shooter who's just gotten worse and worse. And obviously like his style of play, the injury stuff, you kind of worry about. And I mean, talk about just another person who's like, on and off court decision making, like would make you concerned. So I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, they're going to do something at the deadline. Like
they have to do something.
Like
that.
Even
that's the thing.
Like if the wheels continue to come off badly, then like there's plays they can make. Obviously a lot of people, especially after the last two games, talking about like, oh, like they should tank and things like that. I mean, the hard part is like so long as Giannis is like eligible for awards, like there's no way you can shut him down.
I mean,
he wants to play, and he'll keep you from being like horrendous. Although the last couple games make you wonder, like, man, even Giannis can't like stop this team from being a trainer.
And he's already up against it too, with him being out with the injuries, where it's like all of the upcoming games are going to mean even more for him and his candidacy to try to make sure he gets to that 65 game threshold. But I want to continue this conversation, but now kind of looking at the lens of the fact that with this game in the books are officially halfway through the season. Like everyone always looks at All-Star break and they're like, well, you're halfway through the season, but it's like, no, by All-Star, you're almost like almost two-thirds. Like it's now. We are now halfway through this Bucks season. It has not gone the way we expected. But the question here is like, where can they go from here? We've already kind of started dissecting it, but a few more thoughts on that right after this. Fridays already feel different during the basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better every Friday night before the games tip off. FanDuel gives all fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action actually starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern, 5 to 6:30 Central Time have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. Opening the FanDuel app during Happy Hour always brings something new. Boosts, bonuses, and surprises. It can add a little extra energy to your Friday night basketball without overthinking it. So before tip-off, make sure you check out the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour. Again, every Friday, 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 5 to 6:30 p.m. Central Time. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Please remember to gamble responsibly. All right, Frank, we're 41 games through. 41 games through. We're halfway through.
Has it gone fast or slow? I can't really tell, to be honest.
Feels
I feel like it's gone
both
kind
at
of.
the same time.
I feel like it's gone kind of fast, to be honest. Maybe weird to say, but I feel like this season has gone by quickly.
It feels like both to me at the very same time, where it's like, oh, we're really halfway through, but also like, man, I think the last few weeks is probably the part that's making it feel a little slow because it's just been some grueling beat downs over the last few weeks here. But they're 17-24 halfway through the season. They're 3 games behind the Hawks in the loss column for the 10 seed, and they play the Hawks for the first time on Monday, MLK Day, kicking off that slate of games at noon. Bucks are 22nd in both offense and defense, according to Cleaning the Glass at this point in the season. And now the Bucks are going to have 3 days off before they hit the court again to kick off the second half of the season. We talked about, like, I'm not sure if there's any moves for this team to make before the trade deadline to really bolster the roster up. But the same thought, because of the Giannis factor, we know if Giannis is on the court, he is going to play hard. He is going to give the effort. And again, you're still in the play-in picture. You're not in the play-in, but you're in the picture of it right now based on the standings. Frank, if you would have told me this to start the season, that this is what we'd be talking about middle of January, I'd be like, what went wrong? I'd be like, was Giannis hurt? And they're like, yeah, for a bit, but ultimately he was healthy enough for them to win more than what you've seen. And at this point, it's like halfway through. How do I want to word this here? One half of the season to go. What do you hope to see from the Bucks over the last half of the season? I'll word it that way because, again, you can still get into the playoff dance by the numbers and everything like that. The eye test is telling us right now that this team, the way that they're currently playing, is not good enough for anything substantial, any long playoff run substance, right? So it's like, over the last half of the season, what are you looking to see from the Bucks going forward?
I mean, I've never been able to just like root for losses, like even in 2013-14 when, everybody knew that the best outcome was getting better lottery odds, like watching games, I wasn't like hoping they would miss shots or something like that, right? It'd be more like you hope that maybe they can do something and not be terrible. And then, if they lose, then you say, okay, well, silver lining. So I can't, and I get the pragmatic side of like rooting for a stealth tank and saying like, oh, we're going to take a gap year. And it's like, yeah, I mean, taking a gap year when Giannis is 31 is like, let's just be honest, that's like freaking depressing. And just, this is now realistically like years they've wasted of Giannis's prime, basically. So I don't, I mean, I'm pretty simple as a fan. Like I wake up in the morning of a game with, this naive optimism that maybe today is a day they, win a game. And so, I think when you look at the totality of this, like, I mean, they're going to have to pick a lane, in terms of going into the deadline. Like, are they buying? I hope they're not buying for the short term because that seems like a complete waste.
Agreed.
So, is there an opportunity to call it invest in, pieces that could actually make you legitimately competitive over the next couple of years? That, I think would be the operative question. And then I think obviously like you hope that particularly I think Rollins, right? Like Rollins is probably the guy that I have the highest hopes for. Like, I mean, I've always been like probably, relatively high on KPJ, but like also knowing that like you can't really trust KPJ to be like your franchise point guard. I don't know that Rollins you can't either, but Rollins, I mean, he's a couple years younger than KPJ, obviously has way less high level experience, and has been legitimately very good this season. And I think there's the outlines of a player that, could be maybe not an all-star, but, an above average starting point guard, which is actually like a really valuable commodity in the NBA. So I think, first and foremost, like, as long as Giannis is upright, I'm going to hope that Giannis dominates and puts up huge numbers and, gets awards and does all that stuff. Because I just love watching him play basketball, and I just want to appreciate every chance I get to watch him play. And then I think, do you unearth, do some of these young guys like Rollins, AJ Green, if Miles Turner isn't traded, then do you kind of unlock a little bit better version of him than what we've seen next to Giannis? That kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, it's like, you can tank, but like if you tank too well, then you're gonna have to swap with the Pelicans, who, let's be honest, like, if the Bucks finish with the worst record than the Pelicans, like, God help us.
Yes.
But with the lottery odds being flattened, like, it's certainly possible that, if the Bucks are bad enough, that they could potentially even leapfrog Pelicans. Now, you still get a very good pick probably in that scenario, but like, you're not going to get the first overall pick, no matter how well you tank. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just hope that they're respectable. If you ask me, would I rather be, the 10 seed or the 11 seed? I'll say the 10 seed, Camille. Do I think that they win a 10-7 play-in game and then another game? No. But
you never know with Giannis, though.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, I'm just hoping Doc gets fired and, at least maybe there's some alternate conception of how this team can play, and maybe the players rediscover, a level of engagement that perhaps has not been there consistently for a little while.
That's a great way to put it, because the level of consistency has not been there for this team. I think for myself, as we wrap here, I want the Bucks to give me a reason to cheer. Like that's what it comes down to. Like, I've been a Bucks fan.
They're going to say a reason to live. I was like, I hope it's not that bad.
Like, we can't give them that much power. Like, I've been a Bucks fan for decades, right? Before I was doing podcasts, before this was a job to watch this team, I was a fan of just watching the Bucks. Like, my fandom took a leap during the lean years for this team, when I was trying to talk myself into a Monte Ellis, Brandon Jennings backcourt and the potential that they could have going forward, right? So, like, I'm not necessarily new to seeing the Bucks lose. It's a little different to see this edition of the team play as dispirited as we've seen them play at times, with Giannis at the helm. Giannis, MVP, perennial all-star at the helm, looking this way. So I just want the pride on the court first and foremost, and whatever is needed to get to them to playing that prideful basketball, whatever needs to happen has to happen. Like, if the best decision going forward is like, hey, Doc has lost his locker room, not saying they have, just if that is the case, got to go. Because I already said, based on what we've been seeing on the court, it has not been good enough from the coaching staff. So, like, if a change is going to be made, let's not do what we did the last time and try to make the big splash higher in season. Just interim coach it out, and in the season or in the summer, go on a more extensive coaching search at that point. Like, that's the way to do it if the move is made in season. And if you're in a situation where you're just trying to figure things out, figure out who on this roster is actually worth keeping around going forward. Figure that out. Be clear with that around Giannis. Who are the guys you want to keep going forward, and move off that. But ultimately, just give me something to be proud of. Even if you lose, give me something to be proud of. Just the effort at the very least. Give me something cool to look at night in and night out, because there's been some rough watches over the last few weeks for this team. But hey, that's where we are right now. That's where we are. 11th in the East. Could go either way for this team. We'll have to see how it continues to unfold. But we'll be keeping you, tuned in on what's going on Locked On Bucks. We appreciate you for tuning in for today's episode. So make sure you follow, subscribe, so you get all the latest episodes. And again, check out the Everydayer Club. If you are an everydayer, the club is for you. It's in the title. You get Locked On Bucks ad-free. You get a members-only Discord and more. So check that out. Link in the description. For those of you on video, we're going to send you over to the first ever 24/7 National NBA YouTube channel. On the audio side of things, make sure your second listen is NBA Game Night on Locked On NBA. For Frank and myself, we will catch you later.